This is John SCHABEN of the Dunlap Livestock Auction to you, coming on Tuesday, April 21st. Folks, I talked yesterday about specifically with country of origin labeling, and then also, about how history repeats itself. And here we are 100 years later from when the government stepped in and decided that the strength of the monopoly of the big five meat packers needed to be busted up, of which they did back then. Several reasons why, but basically, it was a market manipulation structure. So fast forward to where we're at today, and now I'd like to back up about 30 years ago, starting at 1990, which basically started my adult life in this industry. What was happening right then was a hog industry that was evolving in front of our eyes, that was become sickeningly vertically integrated. We'd already seen the poultry market in front of that go away, but that market was probably always a little different than the hogs. So the hogs hit pretty close to all of us, especially in the livestock marketing sector, because obviously hog business used to be a major portion of literally thousands of these markets around the country. As that industry vertically integrated and shoved that form of price discovery out the window for their industry, the hog marketing, livestock marketing auction tools kind of went away. So obviously, as a market operator today, seeing the very same thing start in your industry, which started there back in the late 80s, early 90s, was very uninspiring to somebody that's watched, grew up, started in this business, family business, trying to become third generational for our family, which we've been at it now 70 years in the livestock marketing industry. So when I read articles back then that said we were going to we needed to get more for our product, we needed to realize true value, so we were going to enter in forms of these contractual agreements, using grids and tools of marketing that they used that were supposed to be new and innovative and everything else. The problem always came back to price discovery and all those forms of pricing structures still went back to a cash market that, if we weren't careful, was going to become broken and non-usable. A good friend of mine, and in this Midwestern part of the country, I can't think of a bigger champion for price discovery than Colonel John Phillips, who's hosted the Price Discovery Report on his radio networks longer than he'd probably care to admit. I've always had fond and great appreciation. Colonel John understands the markets, understands the value of price discovery, and how important is it. As an auction market owner, it's pretty easy to understand about cash markets and how important that is for your structure, because it's basically 100% of what we have. And in any time within that structure, we see entities trying to put more through some kind of a contracted system or whatever. We've watched price discovery dissolve right here in front of our eyes. So it's a pretty self-serving statement. Where am I going with that? So there's lots of things being thrown around today. For several years, there's been that we needed some form of a mandate to the packers. That one popular one out there is 50% of their procurement is going to be on an open cash market to deliver in 1 week. Another one is 30% delivering in 14 days. And of course, if you're me, and I know this is a complete fairy tale, but this guy believes in 100% open cash market and 1 day delivery. You sell the cattle and then you market them. And I think back to when my dad first started having me sell cattle. I was right out of college. I don't know that I'm smart enough to do it today. Probably not close. I know I wasn't then, but he entrusted me to do it. And we had open and still open and fair markets. Buyers showed up when they had bids. Buyers showed up to look at your cattle when they could buy them. I don't ever remember buyers saying, I don't have a bid today, or, I won't have any money till the end of the week, or I won't. In fact, I remember several weeks, by gosh, if you didn't have them sold by Tuesday, they might be full for the week. And then you had to go off to the next week. So price discovery worked fine there. We didn't have that trouble. So that's where we're at today. So where we're at today, what I'm hearing around is that's what's wrong is that we get this minor share of what the Packers are getting, based on cutout values today. So one of the solutions I hear is, well, what if we mirrored our markets to that, trade? Well, today it sounds good. I mean, Packers are using close to $250 on the cutout and buying them at $150. I mean, I might be exaggerating just a little bit, but not very much. So we're talking about $700-800 on a big fed steer today, profit to the Packers. I'm a little hesitant of that because I look at the one industry that just ills me when I think about where it's devolved would be the hog industry. Not only do we in the contracts trading on the board, you get a meat bid. I mean, you don't even get a cash price there. And so I don't think going the way of the industry that we all look at as not a shining example of price discovery. It's an absolute collapse and failure to independent production. What's happened in the hog industry, I don't think it's the right road to go down there. Heck, I remember several years that there would be times of the year that we would sell cattle above the cutouts. Packers lost money then for a few months, and then you knew you were probably coming for a good butt kicking somewhere through there because they were going to get it back. That's really how it's supposed to work. And so I'm a little hesitant to even think about going that way. I think the rules need changed, not how we price them at the end. We need to change the rules. So the concept of asking more cash market trade only makes sense. And I would hope nobody would argue with me from a fundamental cash market standpoint. If 100% of them were done that way, that would be the best. Obviously, it's not attainable. I don't know that 50% is attainable. I don't know that 30% is attainable. I think we're actually at 30 or somewhere around there when you factor it in all. Obviously, when you go down to the South, cash market trade gets to be zero. But I think we're all are going to have to jump in this thing. That's feedlots included. I mean, we're going to probably have to quit donating them on high for the weeks and donating them on the state weighted averages and things like that, and maybe it's time that we're going to have to get back to a little warfare and do like we used to do. And I always will go back to my sports analogy. If the Packers are one football team and the feeders are one other team, they meet in the middle, they flip a coin and they fight and fight and fight. And when the fight's over with, they've hammered out a price, game's over, shake hands, you start the same game next week. I don't believe in starting that game and handling the opposing team your playbook, which we do. I don't believe in letting the other team's referees ref the game. I don't believe in letting the other team's rule makers set the rules. So I want to just touch on a couple quick things. Mandatory price reporting, done correctly, done right, with every ounce of the way it was written to start, would make huge differences in our industry today. But we all know that that bill, when it came, by the time it came to us, we wanted to choke on it because it had been watered down, misconstrued, and that was all done by a lobbying group that's better than ours. And I know what you're going to say. Well, how's it going to be any better this time? Well, this is my idea. Most of the people, if there's 100 senators, and if you went to 89 of them last time, they didn't care. They had no reason to care, honestly. I mean, did Charles Grassley, our senator here in Iowa, care? Damn right he did. Hell, he brought legislation up for this 20 years ago. It didn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere because you can't get anybody to get on deck. I think we get everybody on deck this time. I've said before, if you want to call this a war that we're in, so if you went to battle in that war before on this issue, we had no soldiers. You might have had a general trying to go there, but we had no soldiers. So you used to think, well, I'm going to have to draft my soldiers. Well, we're not going to have to draft them now. They're going to volunteer. And we're going to go in huge numbers, and we're going to demand from our senators from Vermont, our senators from Florida, our senators from New Mexico, our senators from Delaware, wherever they're from. I think they're going to get on deck of this because this thing has shown that our system's broke. It shows that it needs fixed. and we need to get it fixed. I think we're gonna have to have some captive supply legislation. I think the Justice Department is going to have to look at antitrust. History repeats itself. I don't think it's anything too outlandish to think that we're back here again. They'll probably be back here another time trying to fight for this. I'm going to go in that mandatory cool has got to be a part of this thing. Folks, we need a free market economy, and I don't think anybody argues with that. And then as a society, we absolutely thrive on competition. Look at we have an auctioneer contest. We have a hot dog eating contest. Lord knows we watch people, throw a ball around and try to shove it down the other team's throat. I mean, folks, we need competition in everything we do. We want our kids to compete in schools. So why, when we get to this mechanism of life, the ability to price livestock, specifically here, cattle, do we want to give up on that competition? And the answer is that we don't. We don't want to give up. We don't want to go the way of the pork industry. It might be better. I don't know. It'd be a great question. You ask the national pork producers if fundamentally they have more money today than they did back when there was 200,000 more pork farms or 400,000 more pork farms. My guess is they probably have more money today because they have more hogs. But fundamentally, it didn't make it better for the independent producers throughout this system. They're gone. And selfishly, it darn sure didn't make it any better for the livestock market owners and the livestock market auctions across America. And I will promise you that group of people are going to fight for independent producers. They're going to fight for price discovery because it's all we have. It's the only thing we can fight for. And ultimately, we believe that's better for everybody in our industry. If you have any concerns or questions about the markets, as we're getting plenty through this whole mess, we'll take them anytime. We appreciate them. We appreciate all the producers that actually put our food on our table and all the food on everyone else's table. I still give a shout out to the truckers. Boy, if we didn't have the men and women that hop in them trucks and run freight all over this country, I can't imagine where we'll be at. Special mention to all our good friends in the health industry that have been through the greatest battle that they've ever seen, I'm sure, to this date. So again, thanks everybody for listening. Always welcome your calls. And I hope you have a safe day. Heads up to everybody else. We're seeing a lot of planters in the Midwest here. It is always nice to see a crop going into the field. And Lord knows that group's doing their job to try to make sure everybody's got food on their table. Thank you.